One of these symbols could get you arrested, another was burned into people's skin, and one is still banned in classrooms today. You've seen them on stained glass windows, ancient ruins, even tattooed skin. But did you know some of the world's most sacred symbols are illegal? What once stood for peace, power, or prophecy has been flipped, hijacked, and outlawed. In some countries, just wearing one of these could get you fined or worse. Today we're unpacking every forbidden religious symbol the world quietly erased. And once you see where these came from, you'll never look at a cross, a crescent, or even a flower the same way again. The swastika. It's one of the most misunderstood symbols on Earth. To some, it's a mark of hate, but to billions, it's something sacred. The swastika, once a symbol of divinity and good fortune, now comes with a heavy warning label. Its earliest uses go back over 7,000 years. Found in Hindu temples, Buddhist relics, and Jain scriptures, the swastika represents well-being, cosmic harmony, and spiritual evolution. In Sanskrit, swasti literally means well-being. But here's the twist. It didn't become toxic on its own. In the early 20th century, European occultists began using it as a symbol of Aryan identity. Then came Nazi Germany. Hitler adopted the swastika, flipped it clockwise, and flooded Europe with banners, badges, and propaganda. What once meant peace became the symbol of genocide. The Nazi version is now banned in Germany and Austria, with strict laws against public display. But in India, Japan, and Nepal, the original version is still used in temples, weddings, and festivals, completely detached from its dark legacy. One symbol, two meanings, and a global identity crisis that still hasn't healed. But the next one is banned not for hatred, but for history. The Seal of Solomon. Two triangles, one pointing up, the other down, fused into a six-pointed star. Some call it the Star of David. But before politics, before flags, it was something entirely different. The Seal of Solomon appears in early Jewish and Islamic mysticism. Legends claimed it was engraved on King Solomon's ring, giving him control over spirits, animals, and even the wind. In alchemy, it represents the balance between fire and water, heaven and earth. It wasn't about a nation, it was about the universe. But most people get this wrong. The symbol's rise as a national emblem came much later. In the late 19th century, Zionist groups adopted the star to unite Jewish identity. After World War II, it became the centerpiece of Israel's flag, and that decision lit a fuse. In countries like Iran, Syria, and Algeria, the symbol has been banned outright, not for its religious roots, but for its modern political weight. In schools, textbooks were edited. In media, it's often censored or blurred. Even peaceful uses of the symbol can trigger backlash. It began as a seal of balance. Today, it's a symbol caught between reverence and rejection, and that tension is something the next symbol thrives on. The Eye of Providence. A triangle, an open eye, and beams of light. You've seen it on dollar bills, cathedrals, even secret society murals, but the symbol wasn't always shrouded in suspicion. In 16th century Christian art, the eye represented God's eternal gaze. The triangle stood for the Holy Trinity, and the rays meant divine presence. It was a message of comfort, not control. That changed when Freemasons adopted it in the 1700s. They rebranded it as a symbol of spiritual awakening, hidden knowledge, and personal transformation. It wasn't placed in cathedrals. It was carved into lodge walls and ritual tools. But here's the disturbing part. Once it hit the Great Seal of the United States in 1782, everything changed. Suddenly, it wasn't spiritual. It was political. People began linking the eye to secret cabal, the Illuminati, and government surveillance. Conspiracy theories exploded, and in parts of the Middle East, it's now banned or digitally erased, labeled as occult or foreign propaganda, a divine emblem twisted by centuries of mistrust, and yet still staring from our currency. And the next symbol, flip it upside down, and it's been banned for everything from witchcraft to school bans. The pentagram. 5 points, 1 circle, and enough superstition to fill a dozen horror movies. The pentagram is often linked to witchcraft and dark rituals, but its story began in the exact opposite direction. In ancient Mesopotamia and Greece, the 5-pointed star stood for balance: earth, water, fire, air, and spirit. Pythagoras saw it as sacred geometry, a symbol of human perfection. And in early Christianity, it represented the 5 wounds of Christ. It was protection, wholeness, divine order. But here's where things took a turn. In the 19th century, occultists began redefining it. If the point faced upwards, it still meant harmony. If it pointed down, it was seen as a rejection of divine structure. That's when the Church of Satan adopted the inverted version, adding a goat's head and turning it into the sigil of Baphomet. The media latched on. Movies, music, and pop culture made the symbol shorthand for evil. Today, the pentagram is banned in public schools and censored in conservative countries like Malaysia and Saudi Arabia. Even in the West, wearing one one can trigger suspicion, or worse. One shape, two meanings, but in many places, only the scary one sticks. The next symbol, though, it never scared people. It represented life itself, until governments started burning it. The ankh. It looks simple, a loop cross like a key with a handle. But the ankh is one of the oldest symbols of life ever recorded. In ancient Egypt, gods held it to the lips of pharaohs to offer the breath of life. Tombs, temples, and scrolls were filled with it. The ankh wasn't decoration. It was a promise. Eternal life. Divine protection. The link between mortality and the gods. And for centuries, that's all it was. Then came the reawakening. In the 20th century, counterculture moments and Afrocentric spirituality brought the ankh back into the spotlight. It was worn as jewelry, printed on t-shirts, and used in rituals honoring ancestral power and divine femininity. But here's where things shifted. Not because of the symbol itself, but because of who was using it. In some conservative regions like Saudi Arabia and parts of Nigeria, the ankh became labeled as occult. Customs officers have confiscated it. Religious leaders denounced it. And in ultra-strict schools, even a drawing of it could mean disciplinary action. It once meant life, but today that meaning depends entirely on who's watching. And from here, the ban only gets stranger, because the next symbol was a Buddhist emblem of peace, until one revolution nearly wiped it out. The Dharma Chakra. The Dharma Chakra, or the Wheel of Dharma, is one of Buddhism's oldest and most important symbols, representing the noble eightfold path and the endless cycle of rebirth. You'll find it carved into ancient temples, painted on prayer flags, and etched into the robes of monks. It's not about dominance or control. It's about truth. But even truth became dangerous. During China's Cultural Revolution, anything religious, especially Buddhism, was declared counter-revolutionary. Monasteries were shut down, scriptures burned, and the Dharma Chakra, it was chiseled off stone walls and erased from public life. But people kept it alive in secret. In Tibet, monks would hide tiny carvings in caves, etch the wheel onto stones, or wear it beneath their robes. It wasn't about politics. It was survival. Cultural memory disguised as faith. Even now, in parts of China and Xinjiang, open displays of the Dharma Chakra are quietly discouraged, monitored, or outright removed. It remains a peaceful symbol, treated like a threat. But not every ancient symbol stayed peaceful. The next symbol was built for war, and it still draws blood today. The thrishula, 3 prongs, a divine weapon held by gods, and now, sometimes, by mobs. The thrishula, or trident, has roots in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. In sacred art, it's wielded by deities like Shiva and Durga. Its meaning is complex. It represents creation, preservation, and destruction, or the defeat of ego, desire, and ignorance. In temples, it's a symbol of inner power and spiritual force, but that power didn't stay metaphorical. In modern India, certain extremist groups began using the trishula as a rally symbol, not on altars, but in street protests, political marches, and even violent clashes. Tridents were no longer symbolic. They were handheld, sharp, and real. And that's when the government started paying attention. Today in Nepal and Sri Lanka, public displays of the trishula have been temporarily banned during times of civil unrest. In some Indian cities, they are restricted in protest zones, not because of religion, but because of what the symbol has been turned into. Now imagine a symbol that no one could ban, because it never ends. The ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail. One line, no beginning, no end. The ouroboros is one of the oldest mystical symbols ever recorded, and possibly the most misunderstood. It first showed up over 3,000 years ago in Egyptian tomb art, circling a sun god riding a boat through the underwater. Later, the Greeks used it in alchemy to represent the cycle of life, birth and rebirth. In Norse mythology, the Jormungandr, the world serpent, wrapped around the earth in the exact same shape. One design, 3 empires, same meaning. But here's the twist. In the 20th century, the ouroboros took a dark turn. It began appearing in secret society emblems, occult manuals, and even CIA psychological warfare documents. It wasn't about harmony anymore. It was about control, self-erasure, and endless loops of power. That shift made it a target. In conservative schools across the US and parts of Latin America, students were banned from wearing it, lumped in with satanic symbols and occult references. Some televangelists went further, calling it a sign of demonic cycles. But centuries before secret agencies touched it, one European empire used a different symbol to burn its messages directly into human skin. The fleur-de-lis. It looks regal. It looks elegant. 3 petals bound at the base. The fleur-de-lis has decorated crowns, flags, and churches for centuries, but beneath the royal shine, there's a legacy of violence, faith, and forced conversion. The symbol likely began in Mesopotamia or Egypt, later adopted by the French monarchy as a mark of divine right. In medieval Europe, it became deeply tied to Catholicism, representing the Virgin Mary, purity, and the Holy Trinity. But it didn't stop at religion. During colonial expansions, the fleur-de-lis was stamped on banners, coins, and weapons. French forces branded enslaved people with it in Louisiana, literally burning it into their skin as punishment. In Canada, the symbol marked settlers and was used in attempts to erase indigenous culture. Over time, it shifted again, turning into a sports logo, a fashion design, a Mardi Gras staple. But in places like Haiti and the Caribbean, it still carries the weight of oppression and forced faith. As of now, the fleur-de-lis is banned in certain schools and censored in textbooks in regions trying to decolonize historical narratives. So next time you see a crescent, a wheel, or a star etched into stone or stitched into fabric, ask yourself, what does it really mean? Because symbols are more than decoration. They're stories, battles, power struggles frozen in time. What once stood for peace, life, or divinity might now be banned, misunderstood, or feared. And if you want more deep dives into hidden meanings, forbidden history, and strange knowledge, you know what to do. Like, comment, and subscribe. And tell me which symbol surprised you the most.